My name is Claire Donovan. I'm 34 years old. My daughter Nora is 11. She has a gap between her front teeth that she used to hate and now thinks is cool. A collection of pressed leaves organized by season and color, and an opinion about everything, delivered thoughtfully, carefully, usually after a pause, where you can actually see her thinking. She's the kind of kid who apologizes to furniture when she bumps into it and means it a little. She is also the kind of kid who notices things. Not loudly, she doesn't announce it. She just absorbs the world in layers, like she's taking notes on everything and filing it somewhere safe for later. She remembers the name of the waitress who was kind to her 2 years ago. She remembers which neighbor's dog was scared of thunder and would bring the dog a treat when storms were coming without being asked. She is also the kind of kid who had been looking forward to the Henderson family beach trip for 4 months. 4 months. She'd made a packing list in February, a real one, handwritten, organized by category: clothes, toiletries, beach supplies, research materials. She'd researched tide pool animals for the specific beach we were going to, printed 3 pages of notes and tucked them into a folder labeled Beach Trip Science. She'd bought a new journal, a waterproof one because she'd read that sea air is hard on paper, and written Henderson Beach Trip on the cover in careful block letters with a black marker. On the inside cover, she'd written the dates, and then underneath, in smaller letters, things I want to find: sea anemone, hermit crab, sand dollar, starfish. Possible. Octopus. Unlikely, but not impossible. Mantis shrimp. I found out she hadn't been invited anymore at 6:15 a.m. in the departures terminal of the airport. Here's what happened. It started in March. My sister Diane organized the trip. She organizes everything, always has. It's her thing, and she's good at it. And for a long time, I was genuinely grateful. She's the kind of person who handles logistics the way other people breathe, naturally, completely, without apparent effort. She books the houses, coordinates the schedules, manages the dietary restrictions, and the airport transfers, and the restaurant reservations. Every Henderson family gathering for the last 12 years has run on Diane's planning, and it has always worked. A week at a beach house on the coast. My parents, Diane and her husband Rob, their 2 kids, Caleb, 14, and Madison, 12, and me and Nora. Nora circled the dates on her calendar in red. Both dates, departure and return, with a small star next to each one. She asked me approximately every 11 days how many weeks were left. By April, she'd stopped asking weeks and started asking days. Diane and I had been in a strange place since Christmas. Not a fight exactly. More like a tension that had never been named, the kind that lives in the pauses between sentences and the way someone's eyes move when they think you're not watching. It started when Nora beat Madison in a school science fair they'd both entered. Different schools, same regional competition. Nora placed first, Madison placed third. Diane congratulated Nora at Christmas dinner with a smile that didn't reach her eyes and said, "Well, the judges have their preferences," and immediately changed the subject to something about Rob's work. I noticed. I filed it away. I let it go because it was Christmas and because I told myself I was probably reading too much into it. In April, Diane mentioned that Madison had been accepted into a selective summer arts program, painting, very competitive, very prestigious. I said that was wonderful, and I meant it. Madison is genuinely talented. Diane said, "She's always been the creative one in the family," and glanced briefly at Nora, who was at the other end of the table reading the dessert menu with the focused attention she gives to everything, completely unaware that she was being used as a contrast. I noticed. I let it go. In May, at my mother's birthday dinner, Diane mentioned that Madison's science fair project had been submitted to a state competition. She's really come into her own this year, Diane said. She's been so motivated. She said it while looking at Nora. Nora didn't notice. I did. I let it go. I should not have kept letting it go. In May, I asked Diane about the beach house logistics, sleeping arrangements, who was driving, what to bring, whether we needed to coordinate on groceries. She said everything was sorted. She did not mention that the sleeping arrangements she'd sorted did not include Nora. The morning of the trip, I was up at 4:45. I loaded the car in the dark, moving quietly so Nora could sleep until the last minute. At 5:15, I went to wake her, and she was already up, already dressed, backpack already on her back, sitting on the edge of her bed with her waterproof journal open on her knee. I've been up since 4, she said, not embarrassed about it at all. I know, I said. I heard you. She ate half a piece of toast because she was too excited to be properly hungry and spent the drive to the airport telling me about mantis shrimp, which she'd added to her tide pool research the night before after falling down an internet rabbit hole. Mom, they can punch with the force of a bullet, an actual bullet, and they can see 16 types of color receptors. Humans only have 3. They're 4 inches long, and they're basically the most powerful animal in the ocean relative to their size. That's terrifying. It's incredible, she said, and looked back out the window at the dark highway with an expression of complete satisfaction, like the world was continuously delivering exactly what she needed. We got to the airport. I pulled up the booking confirmation to check our terminal, and that's when I saw it. 2 tickets. Not 3, 2 tickets, and they weren't for today. I stood in the departures drop-off lane with my phone in my hand and read the confirmation 3 times. My name, Nora's name. But the flight details, the confirmation Diane had forwarded me in February, the one I had saved and trusted, and never double-checked because she was my sister, and she organized everything, and I had always been grateful, were wrong. Different date, different terminal, a placeholder that had never been updated. I checked the family beach house booking. My name wasn't on it. I stood very still for a moment. Then I called Diane. She picked up on the second ring. Diane, there are only 2 tickets, and they're not for today. A pause, not a short one, long enough to tell me everything I needed to know before she said a single word. Claire. Her voice was careful. I was going to call you. When? It's just, Rob's parents ended up wanting to join, and the house only has so many rooms, and Madison and Nora have been. She stopped. Have been what? They're just in different places right now. Madison is really focused this summer, and I think the dynamic between them has been. Another stop. The dynamic, I said. It's just been a lot. For Madison. I think having Nora there would. Would what, Diane? The pause this time was so long I thought the call had dropped. I think it would be hard for her, Diane said finally. For Madison. I'm just trying to protect my daughter. I looked at Nora. She was sitting on her suitcase 10 feet away, waterproof journal open on her knee, already writing something down, probably the mantis shrimp. Her pen was moving quickly, the way it does when she's recording something she doesn't want to forget. She was completely unaware that the trip she'd been counting down to since February had been quietly taken from her by her aunt, who had made this decision at some point in the last 4 months, and had simply, deliberately, never said a word. She made a packing list in February, I said. My voice was very calm. I was surprised by how calm it was. Claire. She has a folder labeled Beach Trip Science. She bought a waterproof journal, specifically for this trip. She's been asking me how many days are left since March. I know. I feel terrible. No, I said. You don't. Because if you felt terrible, you would have called me in March. You had 4 months, Diane. 4 months to pick up the phone and tell me. Instead, you let my daughter count down the days and pack her bag and get up at 4 in the morning because she was too excited to sleep, and you said nothing. Silence. We'll talk when you're back, I said. And I hung up. Hit that like button and subscribe before I tell you what I did next. I stood there in the departures terminal at 6:18 in the morning, and I breathed for a moment, and I looked at my daughter sitting on her suitcase, writing in her journal in the fluorescent airport light, and I made a decision. I was not going home. I was not going to be the person who drove Nora back to our apartment and watched her unpack the waterproof journal and take down the calendar pages and try to understand what had happened without having the full picture of why. I walked over to her. Nora? She looked up, saw my face immediately. She has always been able to read me since she was a toddler. Her expression shifted. What happened? Change of plans, I said. We're not going to the beach house. She was quiet. She looked down at her journal, then back up at me. Did something go wrong? Yes, I said, but it's not something we need to fix. Get your bag. She got her bag without another word. She asked one question in the elevator down to the parking structure. Is everyone okay? And when I said yes, everyone was physically fine, she nodded and didn't ask anything else. She followed me to the car and got in and put her journal in her lap and looked out the window. I drove. I searched on my phone at 3 different red lights. I know. For coastal hotels within 2 hours. Rocky shoreline, possible tide pools, pet friendly in case there were things to name. I found one. I booked it from the car in the parking lot of a gas station, while Nora went inside to get a water bottle and came back with a water bottle and a bag of those crackers shaped like fish, because she said they felt appropriate. Where are we going? She asked, settling back into her seat. Coast, I said. Different coast. Ours. She opened the fish crackers. Does it have tide pools? Possibly. Unconfirmed. She ate a cracker shaped like a fish. Okay, she said. That was it. That was all she said. We pulled into the hotel parking lot 2 hours later. It was a clear morning, cold the way the coast is always cold, even in summer, with that particular salt-heavy wind that gets into everything. The hotel was small and slightly worn, and had a breakfast buffet and a pool, and visible from the parking lot, a rocky shoreline that dropped down from a small path beside the building. Nora looked at it, then at me. Mom, is that the ocean? 30 feet of rocky shoreline, I said. Possible tide pools, unconfirmed. She was out of the car before I finished the sentence. She was already on the path, journal in hand, picking her way carefully over the rocks in her sneakers. She'd packed rain boots in her suitcase, and the suitcase was still in the trunk, but she wasn't going back for them, not now, not when there were rocks to examine. I sat in the car for a moment and watched her go. Then I got out and got the suitcases and checked us in and brought everything up to the room and went back down and followed the path to the shoreline, where Nora was crouched at the edge of a tide pool, completely still, watching something I couldn't see from where I was standing. Hermit crab, she said without looking up. Medium-sized, moving slowly. I think he's looking for a new shell. I crouched down next to her. There he was, small, deliberate, completely unbothered by the 2 humans watching him. Gerald, Nora said. Gerald, I agreed. I called my mother that afternoon from the hotel room while Nora was showering. She'd already heard from Diane's version, which apparently involved me overreacting and making things unnecessarily difficult, and not understanding Madison's situation. Claire, my mom said. She sounded tired. She didn't handle it well. I think she knows that. But it's done now, and you're there. And Nora's okay, so can we just... Mom, Nora had a packing list since February. Silence. She had a folder. She printed research notes. She bought a waterproof journal specifically because she'd read that sea air is hard on regular paper. My mother was quiet for a long moment. I didn't know it had been going on that long, she said finally. Her voice had shifted into something smaller. 4 months. Diane knew for 4 months and said nothing. She let Nora count down the days. Another silence. Where are you now? Coastal Hotel. Small. Slightly worn. Excellent breakfast buffet, according to the reviews. I paused. Nora found a hermit crab 20 minutes after we arrived. She named him Gerald. My mother made a sound that was halfway between a laugh and something more complicated. She's okay. I looked out the window at the shoreline. Nora had gone back down after her shower, rain boots on this time, journal in hand, moving slowly along the rocks with her head down the way she does when she's looking for something specific. She's always okay, I said. That's not the point. My mother was quiet. The point, I said, is that Diane made a decision 4 months ago and chose, every single day for 4 months, not to tell me, not to tell Nora. She let my daughter pack her bags and get up at 4 in the morning and sit in the airport. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. I know, my mother said, quietly, like she meant it. Okay, I said, and we left it there. Diane texted me on day 2, then day 4, then day 6, the last day of the trip they were supposed to be on. I answered on day 7 when we were already home. I kept it short. I said I wasn't interested in an explanation of her reasoning. I understood her reasoning. She'd explained it in the airport. I didn't need more. I said that what she had done to Nora was not a moment of poor judgment. It was a decision made across 4 months, sustained and maintained every single day, and that was different. I said we would be fine. I meant it. I also meant that fine didn't require her involvement. She didn't organize Christmas that year. My mother did. It was smaller and slightly less efficiently run and completely, entirely fine. Nora filled the entire waterproof journal that week. Gerald the hermit crab got 4 full pages, including a detailed sketch. The tide pools got 12 pages. On the 3rd day, she found a starfish, not a small one, a real one the size of her hand, and spent 45 minutes documenting it before carefully placing it back exactly where she'd found it. On the last evening, we sat on the rocks and watched the sun go down, and Nora told me about atmospheric light scattering and why sunsets are pink and orange instead of blue, which she had first researched when she was 7 and still finds endlessly interesting, and I listened to all of it. On the drive home, she fell asleep in the passenger seat with the waterproof journal in her lap, open to the last page, where she'd written her list of things to research more. It went front to back in her small, careful handwriting, and there was a note at the bottom in different coloured pen, added later. Also, mantis shrimp, in person. Someday. I drove and didn't think about Diane. I thought about Nora at the airport, sitting on her suitcase, writing about mantis shrimp, completely unaware. I thought about the gap between what that morning was supposed to be and what it became. I thought about Gerald. I thought about the starfish placed back exactly where it was found. I thought about my daughter at 4 years old, moving a worm to the grass with a stick, narrating the whole time. It's okay, little guy. I've got you. You're going to be fine. She's always been like this. Careful with things. Attentive. Certain that everything deserves to be treated as if it matters. Because to her, everything does. Some things work out differently than planned. Sometimes differently is better. Sometimes you end up on your own stretch of rocky shoreline with a hermit crab named Gerald and a full journal and a daughter who falls asleep holding her notes. And you think, we were fine. We were always going to be fine. They just didn't know that about us yet. Did I go too far or not far enough? Tell me in the comments. And if this story stayed with you, hit that like button and subscribe. Drop your location below. USA, UK, Canada, Australia. I read every single one.